The world is focused on oil and gas with this war in Iran and the Straits of Hormuz being closed. But there is another topic that I think is more important, so I'm going to cover it today. Let's get into it. So to put it bluntly, the Straits of Hormuz being closed has cut off a very large portion of the global fertilizer supply. Right now, you would traditionally see fertilizer going into the Northern Hemisphere markets for the upcoming planting season, which begins around now and goes into mid-April. So, what goes through the Straits of Hormuz? Half of the urea goes through, about 30% of ammonia, 45% of sulfur, we've got 17 to 25% of phosphates, and 20 to 22% of LNG, which is a nitrogen feedstock. The loss of urea is the most significant as it is the most nitrogen rich of all these fertilizers. Qatar alone provides 5.6 million tons of urea on an annual basis, and they just had their facilities hit and their LNG production reduced by 17%. Some people might think, well, there's other sources like phosphate rocks, such as in Morocco and in China. The problem is, to process this, you need sulfur to make sulfuric acid, and without that, you cannot process this rock to make and extract the necessary phosphates. So essentially, it all gets mined, you pulverize it into a powder, mix it with water, sulfuric acid, and you get phosphoric acid and anhydrous ammonia, which they then turn into liquid and dry fertilizers. What this effectively means is that nitrogen demanding crops can't be planted, and we're going to have millions of hectares of lower yield crops being produced, and that includes corn. Corn being feed corn for livestock like cows and chickens. This will mean fewer chickens for eggs, and this will mean fewer cows for meat and for dairy products. There is no strategic reserve of fertilizer, and the highest demand by crops is right at the beginning as they're starting to develop. So crops most affected are your corn, your leafy greens, and things like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and spinach, as well as non-legume cereals, root crops, which includes potatoes, beets, and carrots, as well as tomatoes and peppers. Countries like India import 80% of their urea from the Middle East. And if we get a prolonged conflict that keeps the Straits of Hormuz closed, Brazil is going to be severely affected when the 2026 fall planting season comes in their spring, because they're in the southern hemisphere. What this effectively does, a mean average, is like 30% of the fertilizer is effectively not available, and there's no alternative sources. And since much of this fertilizer isn't going to make it to the northern hemisphere in time now, we can expect a shortfall of crops in the northern hemisphere. So what does this mean? Effectively, this means we have 1/3 less fertilizer available, which is going to result between 15 and 35% less yield from our crops. It's going to depend on the arable land, the soil quality, to determine what the yield will be with the fertilizer that is available. This will also mean that certain countries, maybe they're more poor, cannot afford to buy the fertilizer. Is now going to be extremely expensive. If this conflict continues, what this is going to mean is 1.6 billion people will be affected by having a calorie deficit available to them. That doesn't mean all those people are going to die, but what it certainly means is you're going to have malnutrition, you're going to have wasting, you're going to have children with growth deficiencies like rickets, and we could see people starving to death in the tens or hundreds of millions. This is perhaps shaping up to be the largest disaster in terms of food security in recorded human history. We're looking at wide-scale famine and malnutrition for a significant portion of the human population. For those in wealthy countries that have governments that can help to offset some of this through subsidies or borrowing, using debt to be able to procure what fertilizer is available, you can expect very high food prices. Food insecurity is one of the single most drivers of civil unrest. When people are starving, they start to turn on their government institutions. So you can expect civil wars to break out, violence to break out, unrest, protests, riots to break out over this. And you can also expect mass migration from famine affected areas. And since many countries will not be able to support the influx of these migrants, you can expect increased border tensions.
This is Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 13. Son of man, when a land sin against me by trespassing grievously, then would I stretch out my hand upon it, and would break the staff of the bread thereof, and would send famine upon it, and would cut off man and beast from it. I want to first and foremost give all praise and honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, the elders of Great Millstone, the men that taught us the truth, this 100% truth, the true way of worshiping the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, whose name is Yahweh Shai. I want to say peace and salutation to your hopeful elect out there that believes sincerely in His truth. Shalom. It's your brother Mayim, coming from the GMS Memphis camp, coming back at you once again with another lesson, and I hope this lesson be edifying to your hopeful elect. Let's get to it. Just when you thought things couldn't get any more worse, it just did. That's why when the scriptures say evil and only evil has come, well, it has come. Like people worrying about the oil not coming through the Strait of Hormuz. Hey, how much more when the food, some of these foods supplies don't come through? And this create a food shortage. People gonna be out here bugged out. And it's what you call a polycrisis. What you see going on. Like, hey, as a matter of fact, let me get this. This is polycrisis from the chat GBT. It said polycrisis means a situation where multiple big problems are happening at the same time and they are connected, making each other worse. See, all this is connected with the same thing. You know, the Strait of Hormuz. You know, if Iran don't open up the Strait of Hormuz, how these farmers are going to be able to plant their crops. Same thing with the oil. You know, like these are big problems. And it's a recipe for a disaster. It says it's not just separating issues, it's a chain reactions of crisis. Simple way to think about it, it said instead of one problem, one solution, you have many problems all tangled together. And hey, out of this war, this is how it's going to play out. You're going to have multiple problems, multiple situations. It said a real world example of a polycrisis, it said climate change causing extreme weather. Extreme weather disrupt food supply. Food shortage raise prices and inflation. And that's what it's going to come down to. When it's a food shortage, prices is going to get raised. You know, it said inflation leads to an economic stress. Economic stress causes political instability. See, people gonna be stressed out of their mind because all the prices is going up, rent going up, you know, everything going up, you know, food, everything going up except, you know, your check. People gonna be in a world of distress, stressing out, bugged out. People gonna be on the edge. And we've been telling you Israelites, you so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, and Spanish, starting with the apostles of Great Millstone, hey, that these times were coming, these bad times, these evil times, when the Lord, he's gonna plague this place like he did Egypt. And one of the plagues that the Lord like to use is that famine. This is Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 13. It says, Son of man, when a land sinned against me by trespassing grievously, then would I stretch out my hand upon it and would break the staff of the bread thereof, and would send famine upon it, and would cut off man and beast from it. So the Lord saying, hey, when a land sinned against me by trespassing grievously, then I will stretch out my hand upon it. And the Lord said He's gonna break the staff of the bread thereof. And you look at a staff is like a support system, like like a stick that supports someone to like walk, like a cane. Matter of fact, let me get it right quick. This is the word staff from the Merriam-Webster. It says a long stick carried in the hand for a support and walking. So what the Lord said He gonna do, He gonna break the staff, cut it off, and it's gonna come in the ways of them food stamps, WIC, food shortage. By the farmers ain't gonna be able to plant their crops. You're gonna go in these stores and you're not gonna see the food that you normally get on a day-to-day basis. It's gonna be a food shortage out here. And the foods that be up on them shelves, hey, things are gonna be high. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6, verse 22. It said, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. So it said suddenly. When something happens suddenly, it happens unexpectedly. So suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. Now the sown places is these farmers planting their crops. Now if these farmers can't plant their crops, fertilize their crops or whatever, hey, how is these stores going to get their fruits, vegetables, things of that nature? So you're going to have certain food, it's not going to be on the shelves. Just like in 2020, you had certain food that you was normally get or you normally see. Hey, they ain't had it on the shelves. But this time going to be worse. It said, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. So you're going to walk in your storehouses, your Kroger, your Walmart, Target. You're going to walk in there and then you're going to start to see the shelves is suddenly empty because you're going to have people food rationing, running to the stores when catastrophic events happen, crisis happen. You know how Jake be buying up everything. Then you think the grocery store gonna full back up? Like, nah, it's gonna be a shortage. People gonna feel the effects of this war with Iran. Cause what Iran doing, they choking America out. They ain't gotta use no missiles. And if America don't come to Iran's demand, hey, things are going to get worse. Like people, hey, it's gonna be in a stage of an uproar. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse Let's start at 14. It said, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and destruction draweth now. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands, civil war, civil unrest. Verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men in invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So it's going to be a sedition among the people, uproars of the people. People going to be invading one another. And they ain't going to regard their kings, the president, the mayor of the city. They ain't going to give a fuck about them because they're going to finally realize that this government is not helping them. They're not bettering their lives. They're making their lives more hard. So they're going to take matters into their own hands. Verse 17, it said, a man shall desire to go into the city and should not be able. So it's going to be military checkpoints, military troops, National Guards, ICE agent, patrolling areas. You ain't going to be able to, travel here and there like that freely. Or come into cities, people from other areas. It says, for because the pride, the city shall be troubled, this house shall be destroyed, and man shall be afraid. And man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods, because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So this is what it's going to come down to. People are going to be in a desperate mind because it's going to be desperate times. The saying in the world, desperate time calls for desperate measures. So the things that people normally won't do right now because, things are somewhat all right, somewhat good. People can get their food right now. But when the times come where there's a hyperinflation, there's food shortage, people going to show you, hey, their true colors. And that's when your neighbor going to be running up in your shit, running up in your house, trying to get your goods because of the lack of bread and the great tribulation. These are the times that we coming into. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3. For the visions yet for an appointed time, but the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. And we seeing these prophecies not tarrying no more. It's not being delayed, it's not lingering. It's happening. So prophecy is speaking louder than ever. So the best thing for you to do, just wait. And be watching and praying to the Lord in these evil times. So, I hope this lesson was edifying to you. Shalom.